Welcome to Success Redefined with Dr. Toni Warner. I'm Dr. Toni, mom of 5, psychotherapist, author, and mentor. Here, you're going to find insightful discussions spanning science, psychology, and soul as the personal and professional meet, and we explore the intersection of what really matters. So success can be redefined with connection, healing, and fulfillment in mind. I want to talk today about how I recently saw this reel, I think it was, and on the reel, it said something like, as a mom, you can't be present and productive and fun and peaceful and exciting all in one day. Just pick one. And I totally disagree. I disagree. Now, before I explain why I disagree, I do want to say a little bit of a caveat here. Of course, we all will have a day here and there that is just one of those days, right? Like it's just not a great day. It's one of those days where we might hear that cliche phrase, did you get up on the wrong side of the bed kind of thing? Or it's just an off day. It's just a yucky day. Perhaps it even feels like a bad day. Like we will have those days sometimes. I'm not dismissing that, not minimizing that, and I'm not saying that's not a possibility because it absolutely is. However, to say that we as women, as moms, as partners, as professionals, to say that we can only have one of these experiences in a whole day, that is so restricting. And the picture that it paints is if you're having an off morning and you're struggling to be present, then that means that for the rest of the day, you can't turn that around. You can't change it. You have to be stuck in that for the whole day just because your morning started that way. Doesn't that sound restricting? We don't have an option. We don't have a choice. I get the idea behind this reel that I saw. And we're going to talk about that today because I do think it's an important concept. It's an important idea for us to discuss, especially as working women that are doing a whole ton of things in our lives in this day and age. But what I don't want to support is this this notion that we can only stay stuck in one experience for the day. And if it's a pleasant experience, great. But if it's not, suck it up, right? Like that's just where you're going to stay stuck the whole day. That's not a healthy stance to take because we can experience different things in different ways throughout our day. We can choose to focus on being more actively productive during certain parts of our day. And then in different parts or different segments of our day, choose to very intentionally focus on just being present with our kids or just having fun with them or having some peaceful, restful time alone, even if it's only for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever the case may be. It's not got to be just a whole day thing. We don't have to just pick one and then we can't have access to the other ones for the rest of the day. We just have to wait until tomorrow or wait until a different day to have a different experience. I want us to be really clear about that because come on, how many of us, right? I know I have. In fact, probably multiple times this week already. It's Friday right now while I'm recording this. So multiple times this week, I can actually think right now, I started the day off at the wee early ages of the morning because I have a newborn and I'm nursing every few hours. And once he wakes up at a certain time in the morning, sometimes it takes him a while to go back to sleep. So I think it was a day where I woke up at like 2:30 in the morning and I did not get to go back to sleep. That's how it shook out for that day because of the way in which I needed to tend to the newborn and then the toddler who woke up and then my teenager who wakes up early for high school and then the boys in the elementary school who then needed right support getting ready for school. It just boop, 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 boop. Okay. That's just how that day worked out. But my partner was we switched shifts, so he was able to go back to sleep when I had woken up at 2:30 because he was with the baby prior to that. And I around a certain time in the morning when all of the kids were kind of up and about, could sense that I was feeling frustrated because of where my mind was going and the stories I was making about him sleeping at that time while I was awake. But really, I was just really tired. We had a shift thing worked out. It wasn't, but my mind was very annoyed. And that made it hard for me to be present because I was focused on feeling annoyed. And I could have stayed stuck in that struggle with being present, that struggle with, I'm just going to be super productive and get stuff done because nobody else is going to get it done anyway, right? Like the kids are doing this and the baby needs this and the toddler needs this and the dishes need to be done and the laundry needs to get done and my partner is sleeping. And so, you know what? I'm going to do the dishes and I'm going to do the laundry. I'm just going to get it all done because if I don't, nobody else will. Right? Like I was not being present in those hours of the morning. And I was not allowing myself to really have fun. I was engaging with my kids and things like that, but not in the way that I really, really want to. So I caught myself. I caught myself with what I was doing. Once my partner did wake up, we were able to talk and I was able to shift. Even though I focused more on being actively productive on the outside of getting things done and having a harder time being present because I was feeling annoyed, I didn't have to stay in that place forever. I was able to shift out of it, very intentionally shift out of it, so that now I could be more present in the afternoon hours. I could be more present when my kids got home from school. I could have fun with my toddler while my newborn was resting and jump on the trampoline with her, right? I was able to have these different experiences multiple times throughout a single day. I didn't have to just choose one and stick with it. And sometimes it's hard to choose just one because you feel like you get sucked in to the negative one, right? The one that makes it so that you're not feeling good. And then you just want to what? Chalk it up and be like, oh, this is how my life is. This is how my day is. I have no control over any of it, no influence over any of it. And yes, some days it does feel that way, but come on. It does not need to be that way every day. If it is that way every day, there are some deeper challenges that we need to address, some deeper root issues that need to be addressed. And it's good to have a support system in place to address that, or to have a working professional, someone like what I do, doing mental health therapy, or even someone that provides a particular kind of professional support through coaching or consulting, whatever the case may be for you. All right, if that is how your day is every day, you're feeling like you're getting sucked into the negative and you can't get out and you have no choice and that's just where you're at for that whole day, that's no way to live. Okay, so yes, we can get sucked into that. I have had periods of my life, unfortunately, where there were seasons where I did allow myself to get sucked into that more often than not. And you know what I did? I went out and I got support. That was hard to do. But us as moms, as women, as partners, the only way that we can really figure out who we are and how we want to be is if we are willing to slow down long enough and intentionally enough to investigate. And how can we do that if we've got our bodies constantly busy and exhausted or worn down, right? Like, how can we do that if our minds are constantly going, thinking about other people or other things or what needs to get done? We can't. All right, so those things are important for us to explore, but I think that none of that was honestly the idea behind this reel that I saw. I think the idea behind this reel that I saw, where it says that, a mom can't be all of these things all in one day. You can't be present and productive and fun and peaceful and whatever words it used. I don't remember it verbatim, but it was saying you can't be all of those in one day. You can only choose one. I think the idea behind that was so that all of this pressure that we can experience as working women and partners to do it all and be it all of the time is nonsense. We can't do it all, be it all of the time. We can't. But I will tell you that we can enjoy our lives more and we can be present and feel more fulfilled in the areas of our lives more. And I think that doing it all and being it all, it has put us in this unintentionally, it's put us in this box where everything is all on us. It was meant to initially, the idea that women can do anything a man can do, and that women can do everything and be everything. The initial idea around that was around giving us more choice in a way that is equitable, right? It was about the choice of allowing us to be able to say, I can do this if I want. I can have access to this if I want. I can say no to having children if I want. I can work out of the home if I want. Whereas when that movement was happening, we didn't have those choices. And so this movement for equity among the sexes, it was coming from a positive place for us to be able to have choices, because as human beings, choice is liberating. Choice is freedom. For us to feel like we have choice in our lives helps us to live a life that can feel much more freeing and fulfilling and in alignment with our values, which then leads to us feeling more free and fulfilled. But what happens, what's evolved over time, is that you have the choice, right? You have the opportunity, you have the access to do this, to do this, to do this. You have the ability to choose. That has evolved over time to us interpreting it as we have to choose it all. We have to do it all. We have to be it all. And the result has become that we are stretched out, stretched thin, stressed out, anxious, overwhelmed, resentful, and truly and honestly unable to show up for all of the things that we are trying to show up for in the way that we want to show up, at least for an extended period of time. We might be able to do it here and there, moment to moment, but in the long run, in the length of our life, the duration of our lives, are we living and leading and loving in the way that we really want to, in the areas that we really want to? And I think that it's kind of all gotten skewed, right? So being successful, if you listen to my earlier podcast episode with Rachel, who is a fellow mental health therapist, and she does many other things too, which is really cool. Check out that episode. I believe it's episode 2. I think it's episode 2, but I'll leave the link below and I'll double check. One of the things she said was, to her in the beginning of her career journey and her marital journey, she was feeling like in order to be successful, she had to do it all. She had to be it all. And I can totally relate to that. Maybe you can relate to it too. It's like, I want to be successful. I want to be successful as a mother. I want to be successful as a partner. I want to be successful as a professional because I care about being the best me that I can be, right? Like, I care about showing up well in these different areas of my life. So of course I would want to be successful in them. But when success translates to having to, needing to, obligated to do it all and be it all, we're screwed. We're screwed. Come on, you know, because we can push ourselves, but so far before we reach some kind of breaking point or turning point. One of them's got to happen at some point. And what I have noticed is that we can lose ourselves along the process. And if we feel like we're starting to lose ourselves along this process of doing it all and being it all for everyone all of the time, it becomes a challenge with a double-edged sword, because one of the most important, if not the most important thing to shift out of that process, when, especially if it's become exhausting, you've burned out, or your mental health has gone to a place where you're navigating maybe anxiety or depression or another mental health diagnosis, whatever the case is. One of the most important things for us to do, if we feel like we've lost ourselves, is show up in the areas of our lives in a way that feels in alignment, in integrity with who and how we truly want to be, whether it's as a mom, as a wife, as a professional, or just as a person. And so you see that double-edged sword. I've lost myself because I have buried myself in all of these roles that I need to fulfill and all of these duties and obligations I need to fulfill, even in all of these goals that I need to achieve. I've buried myself in them, and so I've lost myself. And yet the key to shifting out of that stuck place is to find who I am, to figure out, to find, to discover, to unveil, to reconnect with who I am so that I can show up in that way in these different areas of my life. So I can show up differently in these different areas of my life. And that actually is what allows us to be more and do more in all these different areas of our lives in a way that doesn't burn us out, in a way that doesn't run us thin or run us ragged or lead us to a bunch of resentment or anger or overwhelm or whatever the case might be. Double-edged sword. I've lost myself, and the key to getting out of the rut of feeling lost in my life is to figure out, to find, to reconnect with who I am. Or another way to say is I've disconnected with my own integrity of self. I know that's like a harsh way to say it, but I've disconnected. I have done this in the past, and it was very, very difficult. One of the most challenging, if not the most challenging periods of my adult life. I have disconnected with who and how I truly want to be in all of these different aspects of my life, or in some of these different aspects of my life. And I can feel it so deeply because I've allowed it to go on either too long or too intensely, and I need to shift. And so I need to reconnect with myself because I've disconnected with myself. That process is it's challenging. It's also incredibly empowering. I'm going to do I have to do another episode on some of that, on how to feel successful in navigating that reset is what I call it. But we can, when we've reconnected with ourselves in a way that says, I know who I am at my core. I know my core values. I know how I want to be in this world. I know how I want to show up in these different areas of my life, right? When we talk about doing it all and being it all, we're talking about the areas of our life. We're talking about our work. We're talking about our romantic relationships, our friendships, our personal relationships with our family members and our children, and so on and so forth. Our own health within ourselves, right? Doing it all, being it all, that encompasses all of this and more. The way to show up for all of that is to know who and how we want to be, the version of ourselves that we want to be, get really clear on that, and then do our best each day to show up in alignment with that. I talk about that in my book too, The Reset, High Achiever's Guide to Freedom and Fulfillment. You can check it out online at Amazon if you want. But that's really the way for us to be it all, is to know who and how we want to show up in this world, and to do that regardless, no matter what. To be so sure, so secure in our core of what our values are, not what we value in other people, not even what we value in this world or what we value having in our lives. That's not what I'm talking about. Our core values are how we value showing up, what it means to show up with an integrity within ourselves. So if one of my core values is compassion, then I don't go out and say, oh, you're not like-minded because you're not compassionate. No, that's not what a core value is. The core value is I'm showing up with compassion, even if I see someone else isn't. I'm showing up with compassion with myself rather than shame or blame, because I'm not looking the way I should or talking how I should, the way other moms or other academia professionals think I should. No. Core values. Getting really clear on that. Knowing what that looks like for us, regardless of whether or not someone else is doing what we think they should, what we want them to, or even if they're saying something or doing something that feels hurtful for us. How can we show up in alignment with who and how we truly, truly want to be in this world? Because the reality is that we are in our society going to be judged. We're going to be judged for not doing it all in one capacity or another because of what someone else thinks we should be doing, which is going to just have some discrepancies with what we think we should be doing or what we think we could be doing or what we want to be doing, right? Like, we're going to be judged. We're going to sometimes fall short. We just are. And that's going to be a part of our lived experience in this world. We cannot eradicate that from the human experience. We cannot eradicate that from motherhood. We cannot eradicate that from marriage. We can't just erase it. We can't get rid of it. It's going to be just a part of our human experience. But how we show up for it, the way in which we give it meaning, that's going to change whether it puts a ton of pressure on us or we let it slide off our shoulder, because we know at our core who and how we want to be. Moms, we tend to carry the mental load. And if you haven't heard of what the mental load is, it's essentially the mental space and energy that we use, as well as our emotional energy that we use each day, each moment, each hour, to think about, to consider things like organizing events, taking care of meals, what groceries are needed, scheduling things like doctor's appointments, delegating tasks for our family members, and then making sure that they get done, anticipating the needs of each family member and the choices that might need to be provided in order to help them meet that need, and then making the ongoing micro and macro level decisions in our day-to-day within our family unit, as well as with ourselves. And then also, perhaps if we're a leader in a leadership position at work, then also at work, and it just keeps, it adds on. But the mental load can feel like a hidden hindrance, this hidden hindrance of all of these things that are happening behind the scenes that we feel responsible for, and that, we often just are responsible for, that take up space and energy in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives. And that pressure, if we don't know how to handle it or what to do with it, if we focus on how unfair it is, and it is unfair, or if we focus on how resentful it makes us feel, or if we continue to feel exhausted from it, then can we really show up in all these various areas of our lives in the way that we want to? Can we? I don't think we can. And that's not to say that the mental load doesn't take a toll on us, because it does, nor is it to say that the mental load shouldn't take a toll on us and we should just suck it up and deal with it, because I disagree with that. I don't think that's true. There is a mental load. It is unfair, and I don't think that we want to condone it, make it okay, and then allow it to continue happening. No. However, I do think that we are best equipped to do something about it to handle it in a way that actually helps us move towards solutions and improvement is going to happen much more efficiently if we are able to identify our core values, who and how we want to be, who and how we want to show up, and do our best to show up in alignment with them as much as possible. Because now, when this mental load is piling and 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 piling, it just keeps piling. If we can find a way to come back into our core, maybe there are some deep breaths that you take, maybe there's a walk that you take, maybe there's a jog that you take, maybe there's a journal that you write, whatever practices help you to come back to your core. You can't come back to your core self, your core values, if you're not clear on them. But if we're clear on them and we can come back into our core values, then we put ourselves in a position where we can be more equipped and more clear on how to address the issues at hand. It's like if you ever get in a fight with your partner or someone else that you care about, and you are in a place where you're maybe really feeling really hot-headed, really angry, really emotionally reactive. In those moments, typically, if this is a relationship we want to be ongoing with someone that we care about, typically in those moments is not when we want to try to clearly communicate. It often is very challenging for us to clearly communicate in those moments. But once we've had time to check in with our emotions, to let them settle a little bit, to take care of what we need to take care of within ourselves, and we're able to be more clear of mind, now we can approach that conversation in a more clear manner. So if I am feeling totally overwhelmed by the mental load of the week, and I have felt this way recently, let's see if I can remember what happened. I was sore and bleeding because I had a bleb from nursing that had to be popped. It was rough. But I also needed to nurse the baby. So I needed to nurse the baby on one side while I was having these issues on the other side. And then the toddler woke up crying. And so I needed to stop. I needed to get her. I needed to bring her down. And there was a whole bunch of things happening. She knocked over my water and blah, blah, blah. I could keep going on and on. But I was not in my best place. You wouldn't have known it because I wasn't wearing it outwardly, but inwardly I was like, I didn't have words. I was just, that's how I felt, right? I wasn't in a place where I could clearly communicate at that moment, but there was definitely something I wanted to communicate in those moments because I was feeling really frustrated. What I needed to do, which is easier sometimes than others, is come back into, okay, this is obviously very frustrating for me, understandably so. I'm not going to act like it's not supposed to be frustrating. I'm not going to dismiss my feelings. But I am going to check in with myself and see how I want to navigate this. How do I want to show up for this? Even though it's hard, how do I want to show up for this? I have certain statements that I will remind myself of that help me feel grounded. I'll repeat those in my mind. Sometimes I'll say them out loud. And then when I feel ready, I might take deep breaths. I might close my eyes. And then when I feel ready, if I have realized that there's a certain support that I need, then I will go ahead and call upon that support. And so in this particular instance, for this particular day, I called to my partner and explained that I needed help. And he was very able and willing to come help. And then we were also able to talk about some of my frustrations after that. And that was really helpful. And I felt much more calm. But if I had just immediately reacted in the moments when I was feeling most overwhelmed or most frustrated or even most angry, then whatever I would have communicated and whatever I would have done, it would not have been the best thing. It wouldn't have been really probably in alignment with the way I wanted to show up in that situation. And I'm human, so I'm not saying I don't make mistakes. We all do. I certainly have made my fair share of mistakes. But that is how we can actually successfully feel like we are being it all and doing it all, is to be all of who we know we want to be at our core, is to then trust that when we are lined up with that, when we are connected with that core part of ourselves, now we are very clear or have access to the support and guidance and resources that we need to help us do what we want to do and what we need to do. And also to say no if we need to, too. One of the ways that I figured out what my core values are was to, and I've done this many times, and the way that I do this has evolved many times. I continue to check in with my core values and shift some of the terminology in a way that feels like it fits best for me in any moment in time. And that's okay because I'm learning and growing and evolving, and I never want to stop learning and growing and evolving. So I'm going to keep doing that. So if you are someone that's already created core values for yourself, it's okay. It doesn't mean you did something bad or wrong if you want to revisit that. So one of the ways that I explored my core values was to simply write out, this is how I want to experience being a mom. This is how I want to experience being a partner. This is how I want to experience being a leader. This is how I want to experience being with myself. This is how I want to experience being a woman of faith. This is how I want to experience and insert whatever role or identity that you want to put there. But that is one of the things that I've done, and I've done that with many clients as well. It is very clarifying when you write that down with these different portions of your life. The all, right? Encapsulate. What does doing it all and being it all look like? So is it motherhood? Is it work? Is it partnership? Is it whatever it is? Create those categories and say, what does it, how do I want to experience being that? How do I want to experience being in that role? How do I want to experience being in this part of my life? How do I want, or you could say, how do I want to show up for this part of my life? How do I want to show up for that? Use the language that works best for you. Use the categories of your life, of what makes up the air quotes all of your life. Use your own words and then ask yourself these questions. And as you do that, you're going to write and you're going to write and you're going to write, or maybe you're going to talk it out and record your own voice. You want to get it out of your mind and onto something, whether it's a voice recorder with a transcript, or it's a piece of paper, or it's your computer. You want to get it out and on something so you can look at it or you can hear it read back to you. And as you read it over or hear back, I've done both multiple times. I've recorded my voice multiple times. I've written it out multiple times. Then I just highlight what sticks out to me the most. Compassion, forgiveness, integrity, joy. Just highlight what sticks out to you the most. I have prompts that walk you through this in a little bit of a similar way in the book too, if you want to check that out. But you don't even need the book. You could do this exercise on your own in whatever way works for you right here, right now, right? And then whatever you highlight, check it out and see, is this one of my core values? Whatever patterns you're seeing that you've highlighted of what really stuck out to you as you read it back or you hear it back, ask yourself, are these one of my core values? And then once you've dwindled it to about 5 to 10, the less the better. You might go through it again and see if you can get it a little bit further down. If you've got 5 to 10, maybe you go down to like 3 to 7. Just try to get it down to 5 or below. And when you do that, check in with those core values as you show up throughout your day and see how it fits, see how it feels. Give it a chance. And the more that you find that it fits for you and it feels good to you and helps ground you, helps you feel more connected with yourself at your core, the more successful you are going to show up in all of these different areas of your life. And the more successfully we as women will be able to show up to address some of these areas that need to be addressed, like the mental load. We can address it more effectively. We can deal with it more effectively, more coherently. We can communicate about it more clearly when we are coming from this place of connection to our core self, with that confidence that comes with that, but also this clarity and compassion that is needed in order to really navigate the rough terrains that come with shifting some of the social pressures that come with being a working mom in this world who's also a partner and many other things in our lives. I think to help this conversation go a little bit deeper or feel a little bit more practical is to see how the science, the soul, and the psychology ties into all of it. And all of them do. Science, soul, psychology, they all tie into what I'm talking about here today. We've got the practical and we've got the powerful joining together, joining forces, which I'm all about. I'm all for, and I think is the most effective when we talk about things that are relevant to our life and we want to see change happen. And so science actually can show us brain activity, chemical and hormone releases in our brains and our bodies throughout our nervous system that differentiate, very clearly differentiate whether we are in this state of chronic stress or duress, or if we are in a more satisfying state of peace or pleasure. Our chemistry, our brain reactivity, our brain synapses actually respond differently. They fire differently. The hormones in our bodies happen differently if we are in these different emotional states, and that affects the way that our brain works and the way that our nervous system works, the way that our body is actually feeling. And so you see the part of our brain that allows us to think and act more clearly, it goes offline when we're in this highly emotionally reactive or stressed out state, especially if that's happening chronically or if there's trauma attached to it in some capacity from the past or even from more recently. However, the part of our brain that helps us to think more clearly, to act more clearly, that comes online and is able to function better when we are not in those highly reactive emotional states. So even science supports this, right? We can connect to our core values in a way that allows us to feel really internally connected within ourselves, with an integrity, with a sense of confidence and clarity about who we are and how we want to show up. It actually is supported by science. We can prove that it helps us to be more clear in the way that we are interacting with others, but also in the decisions that we're making in our own lives for our own self. And with regard to our soul, the faith, the spiritual element of this, when we are clear and we're aligned with our core self, we are most able to connect with and access guidance from our source. Now, whether you call that source God or the universe or something else doesn't matter. I think that it's a uniquely personal experience and label that works for different people in different ways. But we do all have an energetic source of love and light that allows us to be conscious. And that is the source of creation, right? It exists within each of us. It connects all of us. And even though it's always there and alive and well, we are not always able to tap into it, to access it in a way that is clear. Because if we're in this place of stress or duress, we simply cannot access this deep interconnected life force that is just at a different energetic level. It's at a different wavelength, right? So if we are in one wavelength and it's at another, we can't access it, even though it is always there for us. If we're not accessing it, how can we really tap into it, tune into it, and be clear on the guidance that is there for us? And so even though it's always there, alive and well, we need to be able and willing to tap into it, to access it, to really deeply and intentionally connect with it. And when we can do that, it's because we are connected to our core self. If we are connected to our core self, we're able to do that. And that allows us to really tap into that clear guidance that some may call intuition. Tap into that clear intuition that is always there and wanting to support us. It's this internal resource and support. But we have to make the effort to really connect within ourselves at our core so that we can clearly understand, discern what that guidance is wanting to share with us. And there are many theories in psychology as well that support this approach, like positive psychology. ACT is another theory in psychology. CBT, solutions focused theories. There are so many theories in psychology that support this idea of being able to come into our core, or what psychology might call getting into a more positive state. The more we practice getting clear on our core values and connecting with them intentionally, the more that we actually reinforce that habit. And reinforcement, positive reinforcement, is a big thing in psychology. It actually helps us to retrain our brains, to wire our brains in a way that is a desired direction, right? And then it becomes more of a pattern for us. And so the more we practice this, the better we get at it. We'll never be perfect at it, and we can accept that, because if we can't accept it, we put ourselves in a place of more stress and duress, and that becomes counterproductive. We've got this. We've got this. We can do it. We do not have to do it alone, but we do have to be willing to practice things like this and to embrace concepts like this within and of ourselves as we go along this process of wanting to be the versions of ourselves that we can feel proud of in all of the different aspects of our lives, so we can feel successful in being who we want to be in all of these areas. Let me know what you think about this. I'd really be interested to hear if you have done a different kind of exercise or activity or practice that helps you feel really connected to your core and allows you to feel like you're successfully showing up in these different areas of your life that are important to you. We would love to hear about that. If you are in our YouTube community, you can share it down below, then other people can benefit from what you're sharing. And I can join the conversation as well, and we can cultivate a community that is helping one another and helping us all feel more successful in a way that's fulfilling and freeing, which I think all of us want and all of us really benefit from. Until next time, y'all. Links related to this episode can be found in the show notes section. Want to submit questions about success, satisfaction, healing, and relationships, health, or work? You can do that free and anonymous at drtoniwarner.com, where you'll find other resources there as well. Did you benefit from this episode? You can subscribe, like, and share with another to pass it on, because anyone can listen on the go with this podcast audio available on all major podcasting platforms.